Hey friends, welcome to our living room once again. Super excited that you are joining with us. And this week, we are taking a look at Easter. Because Easter is next Sunday. It's already April somehow. I know it's been forever since we've been able to hang out and get together. But we are taking a look this week and next about Jesus' life as he's kind of preparing for being arrested. Once he's arrested, his trial, his journey to the cross, and his resurrection. So we're going to be focusing on that this week and next as we just prepare for this beautiful season of Easter, where we just celebrate his sacrifice, celebrate his life and resurrection, and what that does for us as believers. Super exciting. So really excited about this message and next. So I want you guys to think of a season, and this might be a story that maybe you have a little bit of a background with, maybe you have a lot, but I want you to think about maybe a season that was really painful, a season that was really dark, or a season that was really tough for you just to kind of navigate. And was there a person in your life that was there to comfort you that had maybe been through something like that? A person that had been through maybe a really tough season. Maybe that's a really big loss in a sport, and you had maybe a parent or a friend or an older sibling talk to you about maybe a loss that they had gone through as well. Maybe that's not kind of getting the position you wanted in kind of the band depth chart. Maybe that just wasn't a good grade, and you had somebody come alongside you and say, I put everything I had into this test, and I only got a C or a B instead of an A. So I want you to think about maybe you have just a little story. Maybe your story is more in depth and bigger than just a smaller thing. But I want you just to think about that person that came to your aid, that person that came to your rescue and just walked through with you during this really tough season. And I want to share a little bit about a season I went through in college. I went to Mississippi College, and I was involved in the FCA ministry there. And our mentor, Justin, and there was another guy on leadership named DL. Both of those guys walked through just this really tough season with me. I was going through kind of an anxiety disorder, and just honestly, I was a wreck. I had no idea what I was doing, and was just hurting in just really powerful ways, and was just walking around feeling like I didn't really have anybody. And these two guys that I got to serve alongside really like took it on themselves to just care and pour into me. And some of the most powerful encouragement they gave me was because they had experienced this level of hurt, or they had experienced this level of pain. And so Justin had kind of walked through just anxiety with me a little bit and what that meant, and shared some of his story. Really big obstacles in his way, and that he decided to follow Christ and trust everything into God's promise and plan for his life. And how cool it was to see that while he like fully acknowledged this pain is real, like he fully acknowledged like, yeah, you're in it right now, and this hurts, but this is a way that you can step out of that hurt and lean into to Jesus right now, which was really cool. And DL played soccer for Mississippi College, and in August, we as a leadership team found out that DL had torn his ACL playing soccer. It was his senior year, and he was so looking forward to it. He was a captain. He was awesome at soccer. And in August, we see him in this moment that he got the call, that it was confirmed that his ACL had been torn, and we got to pray with him, and we got to just kind of surround him in that. And as we kind of walked through the fall and through the winter there, during that season, I started going through some physical stuff. I started experiencing some health stuff, and so DL going through just kind of an injury, and me going through some other stuff. We walked just kind of side by side, me maybe a little bit behind him as I just watched this guy worship, and I watched this guy fully trust and fully just buy into the promise and plan that God had in his life. That he was so bought in, that he was so optimistic, he was so positive, and that he knew God had a plan for this. Even though it was his his senior season, even though he had torn his ACL, which is a huge knee injury and some athletes don't ever recover from. He was just so bought into Christ and doing this. And so we walked through a little bit of just what it meant to trust in him when you have no control of your health, or you have no control of your knee injury. And it was so cool to sit there, and I felt like more connected to him at times than I did other friends or family, because he was experiencing something similar to what I was going through in that time. And Justin had experienced something similar to what I was going through in that time. And the advice they gave me, the wisdom that they just kind of poured over me during that time, the encouragement, and just the listening was really, really impactful for me, because I knew that these guys got it. I knew that these guys had been there, were there in that moment, and that they really understood. I had friends that were like, hey, I hurt for you right now, but I have no idea what you're going for. And that was nice. That was helpful at times. But those people that have been there and been through it already, those people really, really encouraged me. And as we look at Jesus, as we look at his life and him walking to the cross, I think we're going to find a lot of similarities in that. And so maybe you found that in your story already, that person that helped you through a season, and that person that helped you in just this really, really dark time. And those people are around us, and Jesus did the same thing. All right. So we are going to read from Matthew today. We're going to jump into Matthew chapter 26. And we're going to start in verse 36, okay? So Matthew 26, verse 36, and I'm just going to start us off right now, okay? Then Jesus went with his disciples to a place called Gethsemane, and he said to them, sit here while I go over there and pray. He took Peter and the two sons of Zebedee along with him, and he began to be sorrowful and troubled. Then he said to them, my soul is overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death. Stay here and keep watch with me. Going a little farther, he fell with his face to the ground and prayed, my Father, if it is possible, may this cup be taken from me. Yet not as I will, but as you will. Then he returned to his disciples and found them sleeping. Couldn't you men keep watch with me for 1 hour, he asked Peter. Watch and pray so that you will not fall into temptation. The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. He went away a second time and prayed, my Father, if it is not possible for this cup to be taken away unless I drink it, may your will be done. Then he came back. He again found the disciples sleeping because their eyes were heavy. So he left them and went away once more, prayed the third time, saying the same thing. Then he returned to the disciples and said to them, are you still sleeping and resting? Look, the hour has come, and the Son of Man is delivered into the hands of sinners. Rise, let us go. Here comes my betrayer. While he was still speaking, Judas, one of the 12 disciples, arrived. With him was a large crowd armed with swords and clubs sent from the chief priests and the elders of the people. Now the betrayer had arranged a signal with him. The one I kiss is the man. Arrest him. Going at once to Jesus, Judas said, greetings, Rabbi, and kissed him. Jesus replied, do what you came here for, friend. Then the man stepped forward, seized Jesus, and arrested him. With that, one of Jesus' companions reached for his sword, drew it out, and struck the servant of the high priest, cutting off his ear. Put your sword back in its place, Jesus said to him, for all who draw the sword will die by the sword. Do you think I cannot call my Father, and he will at once put at my disposal more than 12 legions of angels? But how then would the scriptures be fulfilled that say it must happen in this way? In that hour, Jesus said to the crowd, am I leading a rebellion that you have come out here with swords and clubs to capture me? Every day I sat in the temple courts teaching, and you did not arrest me. But this has all taken place that the writings of the prophets might be fulfilled. Then all the disciples deserted him and fled. Man, that's a lot right there. And just to kind of recap, Jesus is fully aware of what's going on. He's fully aware of what's about to happen, and that is that he is going to be arrested, that he is going to fulfill these prophecies, that he's going to fulfill these scriptures, that he's going to go to the cross, that his friends are going to leave him, he's going to be betrayed, and he's going to die for our sin. Because he thinks that we're worth it. All right, and so to recap, Jesus is going through a lot in that time. So maybe these are some things that you can identify in this moment that are similar situations to something that Jesus was going through during this. Jesus was talking a lot just about where he was. He's like, I'm overwhelmed with the point of death. Like my soul is anguished. And he's just like praying these prayers like, Lord, please just take this away from me. But also saying like, your will be done. So he comes back to his friends, his disciples, the people that are closest to him, and they're just asleep every time. He's like, hey, could you pray for me? And then he goes off and comes back and they're asleep. He kind of leaves them with some instructions, and every time he comes back, they're just asleep. And the last time that he finds them sleeping, he just tells them, wake up, like here comes my betrayer. And so Judas, one of his 12 best friends, one of his disciples, is leading the charge with this crowd, and they've got a signal, they've got a sign that says, hey, the guy that I'm going to kiss on the cheek, he is the one that you want. Arrest that guy. And so he comes up, gives them just this backhanded like kiss on the cheek, this greeting, this sign of like a deep relationship. And here Judas is using this as just a way to pass him on into this angry crowd, this group that is going to arrest him, is going to take him to trial, and is hoping to kill Jesus here pretty soon. So Jesus is kind of betrayed by all his friends in kind of a smaller sense. He asks them to do some things. He kind of is really vulnerable about where he's at, and his friends are just like snoozing. They're just falling asleep, catching some Z's, and they're just sitting back and just kind of, it's not that big of a deal to me, as Jesus is really, really hurt right now. And we see in the words of Jesus that his soul is feeling it. And if you've ever been around somebody that has just been in, it's just like some deep darkness, their demeanor, the way they act, the way that they kind of interact in everyday life, there's something off, right? Those people are, they're thinking it, they're feeling it, their soul is just heavy, and you can just kind of notice that something is wrong. And I would imagine that Jesus is in that place too, that he's saying some really heavy things of like this anguish, or my soul is so heavy to the point of death, and things like that. We're sitting back just seeing this happen, and the disciples still can't really understand that Jesus is hurting this much because they're so kind of focused on sleep. And Judas ends up turning him over for money. He turns in his best friend for money. This crowd is swarming. This crowd brought weapons just in case. And here Jesus is, having never committed any type of violent crime, having like healed people, having cared for people, having helped people that were poor. Jesus is now being confronted with this angry crowd, this crowd with weapons here to seize him and lead him away. And Jesus is presented with all these things that people are saying about him. And this is shortly after all of his friends desert him. So at the end of this last verse, then all the disciples deserted him and fled. His best friends leave him in his kind of most dire time. His best friends are gone. They're out. You have these crowds saying things about him that aren't true. And he goes to the cross. He's arrested. He goes through trial. He's accused of all these things. Goes to the cross and dies for us. He takes that on for us. And so I know that it really stinks when people say stuff about you that's not true. It happens all the time. People that are just kind of calling you out, maybe your character, maybe your decision in a situation. Maybe it's like just at school, people are saying things about you, and it's just, there's no truth to it. But people that you know, and people maybe that you don't know, are all just kind of collecting this information and sharing it with other people. I just want to say that Jesus has been there. Jesus had people that he cared about that just kind of left him. They didn't stand up for him with truth. They were like, "Hey, this really isn't this guy. Like, I've been with him for years, and this isn't who he is." And they didn't say that. They had that opportunity, but didn't. They left. They just ran away. And you have these crowds that are just swirling all these kinds of rumors and who he is without really truly knowing who he is. Um, just the general essence of not having a friend in this moment too. I think all of us maybe experience a time where we don't feel like we have a true friend, or maybe we don't have a set of good friends. And um, Jesus right there too, that one of his best friends betrayed him. Uh, the rest of them have ran away, and he's truly alone, going to the cross. All the people he helped and cared for along the way, the people that would know him to be an awesome guy, aren't there anymore. They're gone. The people he healed, the people that he cared for, the people that he kind of transformed, are now nowhere to be found. Because there's all these things swirling around us, and Jesus was sacrificing a lot to go through this. He was beaten to the point where he couldn't like fully get the cross to the destination where they were going to crucify him, and people insulting him along the way, and he's sacrificing all these things for us. He's sacrificing a lot here. He's putting on a lot of pain for us. He's putting on a lot of similarities that we're gonna have throughout our life, right? Maybe we're not physically hurt by other people, but emotionally we're devastated by people sometimes. People that are really really close to us, like our friends, our family, or people that we don't even know. Maybe people just on the internet saying stuff about us. Maybe people at school just starting rumors about us. All those kinds of things are things that Jesus kind of went through in a similar fashion. So Jesus has sacrificed so much for us, has taken on so much pain, and now he's becoming the sacrifice for us. Not only is he sacrificing for us, he is the sacrifice for us to purify us, to cleanse us as this perfect, righteous man, taking on a sinner's death so that we can truly know him, and that this all would be twisted upside down, right, in that kingdom of God. It really brings me a lot of comfort, and just continues to blow my mind that our Savior of the world knows what I'm going through, knows what I've been through, that he understands what anxiety feels like, where he would understand and know what it feels like to not have a way out of a situation, or where maybe a situation doesn't feel like there's a right answer, or an answer where somebody's not going to get hurt, or you're not going to get hurt either way. He's been there before. Sometimes when I feel isolated, or when I feel alone, I know that Jesus has been there before, and I find comfort in the fact that I can talk to him about that. I find comfort in the fact that he's been through all the things that I can really imagine. And he's gone the extra mile in the fact that he was betrayed and arrested on things that he didn't actually do. I've never been arrested. I've never really fully been betrayed. There have been moments where I felt like it, but here Jesus like takes it full circle and dies for those things, and he dies for us. And I'm super comforted in the fact that he understands my pain. I'm super mind blown that he would do that for us. And third, he's doing it because we're worth it. He's doing it because you're worth it, and that I'm worth it somehow. That he was thinking of you, and he was thinking of me as he was walking to the cross. That he was thinking about everybody insulting him on the way to his death, and that they were worth it. That's incredible. That's amazing. So we want to leave you with a little conclusion, a little challenge of some things that you can do this week as we just reflect and get ready for this Easter season, with Good Friday coming up, and with Easter coming up. It's this really beautiful time where we sit back and reflect on what Jesus did for us, and we sit back and reflect on what that means to us now, and what that means to our lives, and what that means for our careers, and the way we handle money, the way that we handle people that are easy to love, people that aren't easy to love. All of that just meshes into this fact that Jesus went to the cross in this Easter season, that he beat death, that he conquered that death because we were worth it. After sacrificing so much and being in a spot where he understands our pain, which is so cool. So, three things to kind of do after this message. Number one, just thank him for doing that. Thank him for being a God that would step down from heaven. I'm sure that our all-powerful God could have found another way, but the way he chose was an intentional, relational one, where he understands what we've been through, and that he took on the hardest part, that we would have a chance to know him, that we would have a chance to abide with him and live with him forever, which is crazy. So thank him for that. Just thank him during this season. Number two, tell him where you're at right now. Tell him how you're doing with this weird season of being apart from all your friends and extended family. Tell him where you're at. Share that pain with him, knowing that he has experienced pain, that he wasn't just sitting around up in heaven, just kind of outside of the situation. He went into it. He got his hands dirty, right? Share that pain with him, because you know that he has endured and suffered a lot of pain as well. And lastly, ask him how you can help others in their pain during this time. So if these things are things that maybe you're struggling with, the pandemic going on with COVID, maybe ask how you can help other people during that time, how you can reach out. Maybe it's just a text to a friend. Maybe that's just a phone call to a friend, just to let them kind of share where they're at, and go through these things together. That'd be awesome. Maybe it's not related to what's going on right now. Maybe it's just something that's completely different. Maybe it's something that's exaggerated by being alone all the time or being in the house. Reach out to a friend this week and tell them. So as we conclude this week, just remember to thank God for that, to tell Jesus about what you're experiencing, knowing that he has been through it too. And lastly, to reach out to other people and see if there's anything you can do for them. If there's any way you can walk alongside them in darkness and hurt and pain, and be that comforting spirit that our Savior was. So remember that Jesus was that sacrifice for us, that he's that comfort for us. And this is that message. And just wanted to remind you, if you're not already in the GroupMe, we have a 6 o'clock on Tuesday discussion about this message, about this time together. So if you're not in that GroupMe, feel free to reach out. I'd love to get you involved in that small group as we just kind of talk with other students and leaders about what this looks like, about how to kind of model our life after these things, and how to just continue growing and walking with Jesus. Guys, we care about you. We hope you guys are staying safe during this time, and I hope you guys have a wonderful week. All right? Take care.